Hey guys, it's Mark here, and I am doing a drive to Kentucky in the Tesla Model 3. I'm very interested in how this goes because this is a trip I've done very often in an ICE car. I go to Louisville, to Kentucky twice a year for work because I'm a whiskey writer and I do whiskey podcasts and whiskey related consulting. And so Kentucky's naturally a place that I go to a lot. Now, driving there, it makes sense from Toronto. It's about a if you look it up in Google, it's about a 10-hour drive, 9 hours and 45 minutes. Driving there makes sense because there's no direct flights to Kentucky. I'd have to fly to Cincinnati through a connecting flight and drive an hour and a half with a rental car. And I like my cars. I mean, I've liked all the cars I've owned. So usually the perk of having my own car in Kentucky versus a rental is always a big perk. So, but normally the drive takes about 11 or so hours because, you stop off for gas, you go to the bathroom, you get some food. And in my Model X with the 75D battery, this drive would just take too long. I wouldn't. With the kids, I got the Model X 75D because with the kids, we're stopping every 2 hours anyway, and it just made sense that most of my driving, that's what it's going to be. But with the drive to Kentucky, according to a better route planner and a few of the other routing plans, it's about a 12-hour drive, including all the charges. So, I mean, that's not that bad. Normally, like I said, the drive takes about 10 and a half, 11 hours, maybe a little bit more than 11 hours, depending on if we stop at a restaurant. But still, in this car, the estimate is just over 10 and a half hours, including charging stops. So we have 2 charging stops according to Tesla's app, and they're both going to be 40 minutes long. I expect them to be a little shorter, actually, because I think this car charges so quickly. But we'll see. Anyway, 40 minutes isn't bad at all. I mean, that's enough time to plug in the car, go use the bathroom, get some food, come back, stretch your legs, and get in the car and drive away. So, according to the route planner, this is driving as close to my previous ICE vehicles as it gets. The difference between this and the Model S, there's 2. You can get the Model S with a 100D battery that has a similar rated range, but I think the story with the Model 3 is that this car drives closer to the rated range. Like in my Model X, I never get the rated range of 384 kilometers. I've never seen that much range out of it. And the Model S as well has like a rated range of 575 or whatever. But this one has a range of 499 kilometers. I really doubt that number. I think that number is very conservative. I think the rated range is closer to actual range. So far driving this car, it's been way closer. So we're going to keep a line on that as well. Anyway, we'll see how this goes. Looking forward to this drive. It's been a breeze. I mean, honestly, the autopilot has been driving most of the time, taking a lot of the work away from me and allowing me to pay more attention to the road in general. And yeah, we'll see you in a little bit. So we are not far from our first supercharger station in Cobbler, Ontario. We've been driving for almost 3 hours now at 322 kilometers. Normally when I do this trip, I stop a little sooner just to kind of stretch the legs out. So and there was a supercharger sooner I could have stopped at, but anyway, this is the one we're stopping at. It says we're going to need about 30 or 40 minutes to charge, so we'll see how long that actually takes. Otherwise, the car driving itself is really great. A good example of why you still need to pay attention to the road. There was like a tarp on the road that it had fallen off the car. And I mean, if I'd been looking at my phone, I would have just driven over a tarp and had some damage done to the car. So, there's always a reason. You always need to pay attention to the road, even when the car drives itself. We're not there at that level 5 autonomy where there's like no steering wheel and the car just does everything. This is still level 2, and maybe one day it'll be level 3 where the car will basically drive itself. But you still need to be an aware driver rather in the car. And I'm glad that it bugs drivers as they go. And actually, now speaking of thing, I gotta get off the highway here to get to the supercharger. Apparently in August, the code of the next version of this code, the operating system, will take the car off the exit ramps and will drive them off the highway when you need to get off the highway. But at this point, it doesn't. So while the car will change lanes when you tell it to change lanes, simply by signaling, the car just knows you want it to change lanes, but it will not do things like go off the highway or go between highways. Now, getting off the highway isn't, it's kind of a trivial thing. Like, even, you're gonna have to take control of the car anyway. But the nice thing is, if you're driving between highways, so going from one highway to another, the next version of the code will handle that. So you'll be able to relax as the car drives you to your destination. That's pretty great. All right, so we are in Cobourg, Ontario, and this is what it looks like. I just plugged this in a few minutes ago, and we're already up from 23% to 31%. Look at that speed it's charging at, 752 kilometers per hour. Now that's not going to stay at that speed, obviously, because once it gets to 75, 80, 90%, the charging speed will go down, will go slower as you go. Just kind of with your cell phone. The meaty part takes really quick to charge, but the end does take a little longer. So it says it's going to be 40 minutes to our destination, which is fine. Gonna take a break. There's lots to do here, coffee and things of that sort, so not a bad time to take a break. The one thing you realize when you drive a Tesla is how long stops actually are. You think on a long trip you go into the car and you pumping gas, or you get in the car, you pumping gas, and then you go. But in reality, I've been here for 30 to 40 minutes. The car notified me the car is ready to go on the trip just before I had finished like breakfast essentially, and now this is 40 minutes to full charge, but I'm charging a little extra only because I know the Detroit area can get a little hectic, and it originally told me I'd get to Lima with 11%, which is probably more than enough, but I just wanted to give myself a little bit of a pocket as I get used to this car. And the charging, it'll tell you how much it cost, is $11.60, and that was for well, I guess so far from getting from 23% to 84%, and that's not too bad. So I'm happy to pay for that. Definitely better than an $80 tank of gas. We're getting close to Lima, Ohio. We've been driving about close to 200 miles, and our charge is 29%. So really kind of very easy traveling, and yeah, the car's been driving great. Mostly on its own. Our biggest slowdown was probably getting across the U.S. border. There was a bit of a lineup. I even have a Nexus Pass, which allows you to get through faster, but that didn't really help. I mean, it helped. It still took a while to get to the border. But yeah, this is 27%, and it's gonna be another 300 kilometers to Louisville after this stop. So another 3 hours of driving, give or take. The GPS is right now saying we're gonna need to be there for about 50 minutes to charge. This will probably be the stop where I'll get some food and actually eat a real meal. Yeah, the one other thing I'll say is I've been dealing a lot with the newest version of the Tesla Autopilot with the nag, where it bugs you to hold the steering wheel. It never really bothered me before this. I've been driving, with the newer Autopilot for a little while, for like, I guess I've had for 3 weeks between this and the Model X. And the nag never really bothered me, but I realized it's largely because when I drove on the highway and used it, it was in a lot of highway traffic. There's a lot of traffic on the highway, so my hand is normally on the steering wheel because that's the safest place for it to be. I've noticed that it has bugged me where I would just like hold my hand up here and maybe just have my my other hand on the steering wheel lightly, or just like very lightly, I had my hands near the steering wheel but not exactly on it, which I still think is a safe position. I don't, there's so little traffic and there's so little obstruction of my vision that should be more than enough for me to respond if I need to. So yeah, like it was very excessive. Like it just kept bugging me and bugging me and bugging me, to the point where I do just have to change positions. Again, this wouldn't be a problem over short trips, but because I've been driving now for close to 6 hours, I'm starting to play around with how trying to move around the positions to be comfortable, and that's just not working. But otherwise, the lane changes have been great. The ride has been smooth. I do miss my Model X seats. They are excellent. They're so comfortable. These are nice. They're very comfortable. But I'm starting to feel a little bit of wear on my back and butt from being in these seats for as long as I have been. So here's the Model 3, beautiful, beautiful car. I'm just gonna go inside and show you guys the charging screen. This is wicked in distance, long distance driving. So I've done since the last charge 300 kilometers, so about 200 miles, and so about 3 hours worth of driving. I mean, really, that's pretty great. I have 50 minutes to continue my trip, so 50 minutes is not for a full charge. This is just the duration of time needed to continue my trip, and that charging rate is amazing. 117 kilowatts, 741 kilometers per hour. Anyway, it's going to be great, but I'm going to go have some food here, so I might be stopped here a little bit longer, and that's okay. The car will just charge more and save me on time later. As predicted, I stayed at the restaurant a little longer than I should have, which is fine. I'll use this power elsewhere, but paid $12 so far. This is what I keep saying. It's a lot of time for 100%, but to get to 80, 85%, it's really quick. Anyway, 20 minutes for 97 to get to 100%. We're not going to wait that long, so time to unplug and go. This is the lightest of the weather that we've hit. We hit some strong weather, but it's not raining as hard anymore. Got to the hotel, which is actually on the Indiana side, and plugged into a destination charger. Now these chargers go a lot slower. Before we were getting much higher speeds, and now this is a pretty slow charge. So it'll take us about 6 hours to get to 90%. But that's okay. The whole point of these chargers is that you plug in here overnight, so that when you when you go leave the next day, you've got a nicely charged car. Most hotels, all cities will have a hotel that does have one of these chargers. I'll probably show you this one here later, but now it's raining, so I'm kind of gonna avoid being outside. So here we are. I just got here a minute ago, and it just finished charging to the rated range of 499 kilometers. Thanks to the destination charger. So we're gonna unplug and head out today. But first definitely gonna go for some coffee, and then we're visiting a distillery somewhere over here.